Hello again, everyone. In today's lesson, we're going to be approaching the writing task and talk about strategies that you can use to approach the writing task, as well as some techniques to successfully completing it. Now, just like in the reading task, the writing task or writing tasks that you may have to do are pretty similar across all standardized exams. It doesn't matter if it's the external exam that you'll be taking. It doesn't matter if it's the ACT, the SAT, the GRE, the TOEFL, the IELTS, the BEC, any exams you have to take. They're all pretty similar. Now, for the writing part of the exam, there are two main types of things that you may be required to do, two main types of tasks. We have first a letter, either a personal or an official letter, or an informal or a formal letter, or an essay. Now, you should also be aware that there may be, or they may ask you to combine several types of writing in the assignment. For example, you may have to write about environmental problems to a close friend in a neighboring city. So just like in the real world, these writing tasks may not fall neatly into one category. They may be kind of a combination of other tasks that you've done before. Now, some tips that you can use for approaching the writing section are, first and foremost, read the task carefully and underline all the important information. If it sounds like I'm a broken record player or talking on repeat all the time, it's because I am for this point. It's very, very important that you read the task carefully and underline all the important information. Step 2 is plan your writing and do it effectively, and I'll also say efficiently. You want a very efficient, clean, good plan for your writing. Because when you get to step 3, actually writing, it will make the process much faster and much easier. So step 3, start writing. Write your exercise, your essay, your letter. And step 4, check your writing. Never, ever, ever submit an assignment, an exercise, or anything without proofreading it first. So let's pay attention to the fact as well that there will always be a word limit included in the task. For example, the task could require a minimum of 100 words. But if they say that, it means that there should ideally be between 200 and 250 words. Now, don't waste time trying to cover, or trying to count rather, all of the words that you've used. Don't sit there going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No. Don't do that. It's a waste of time. Rather, simply try to cover the topic properly without rambling, without wasting any time talking too much about something. Let's discuss these defined steps in detail. Now, you should see the task to write a letter on the screen. Now, there's a lot of text here, but I don't need all of it. I don't have to read this whole thing. But there are some key words that we need to make sure that we identify. First, a letter to the editor. Now, do I know the editor? No. So this letter should be official or formal. Other places give you ideas of how to plan the letter that you'll be writing. Here, we say specifically, in your letter, describe what kind of friend you prefer and why, and say what can cause a friendship to go wrong. Now, these here will give you your structure. They tell you what you need to talk about. And finally, they say, write a letter of at least 100 words. Again, you have a word limit. You need to write at least 100. And they also say, do not write your own name, any dates, addresses, or personal information. If you include this information, you will lose marks. So, you should take into consideration what information should and should not be included in your letter, and they will always give you this in the prompt. Now, since we've talked about the task, and since we know what we should be doing, it's time to discuss the second step, and that is planning our writing. Now, this planning step is essential to writing an effective essay and to using your time effectively, specifically. So let's analyze first what possible problems could occur if you write without planning. Well, first, you could write too little. But that's typically not a problem. Much more common is writing too much. You could write too long of an essay or a letter. Or the worst, the absolute worst, is running out of ideas in the middle and you don't know how to finish. You don't know where to go from there. So, thinking about how to plan our writing effectively, we should spend only 10 minutes planning our writing. And here, it's better not to think about ideas, but think about rather reasons and examples. And write down any thematic vocabulary, any thematic words you can think of, because this will help you generate ideas. Now, while preparing for this, I would also highly recommend using an outline format where you use really only the words you need. Write down your topic, reasons, examples for each paragraph, and try to have 2 or 3 examples for each. This will provide the skeleton for your essay, and really when you go through and start writing, all you have to do is fill in the words and make complete sentences. And finally, it may be a good idea for you to make notes of time next to this outline. How far do you want to be at a certain point? After 15 minutes, do you want to finish this paragraph? Just to make sure that you yourself are on schedule writing. So the next step now is to start writing. Now, when we start writing, there are a few things that we should remember. First, organize your letter or your essay into paragraphs. Now, you've already organized your topics and your discussions by information in the planning step. Here, you just want to organize it into the paragraphs you'll be writing with. Second, although this is very tempting and you may want to use this, avoid long, complex sentences, even if you can do it in a way that is grammatically correct. Because as a sentence gets very, very long, it becomes very difficult to understand, or very difficult to understand easily. There's some writing that I've seen, even in professional academic literature, where someone makes a paragraph, what should have been a 6-sentence paragraph, out of 1 sentence. And that is just so difficult, even for a native speaker, even for a very intelligent speaker or reader to understand, that it's best just not to do it. Use simple structures or simpler structures. Avoid using anything too complex, but make sure you use them properly. Similarly, use appropriate linking words and expressions. These will provide fluidity. They make your writing flow and more logical and easier to follow. And finally, remember to use varied vocabulary, which will be much more interesting for your reader. It's better than saying words like also, 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 as well as, in addition, right? It's much more interesting when you change up the words you're using and try to be descriptive. Now, in the 4th step, we're going to want to check our writing. Now, first, look through the written letter or essay and check whether you've made any grammatical or lexical mistakes typical of you. Now, this also requires that you know what mistakes you often make. For example, talking about myself, I have trouble with the vowels A and E when spelling long words. So, whenever I look back through my writing, I always check words where I could have made a mistake. And in these words, I make sure that I can fix it. And next, check it with a pen in hand. So, for example, in common mistakes that people often make, don't forget to put S for he, she, and it in the present tense. Or don't forget to use articles or the correct articles. Don't forget to use the correct prepositions, etc. Normally, it's very small mistakes that get people here. For example, saying by instead of saying of or for. Now, that's it. That's really all the advice that I can give you for the writing section. So, to summarize all of these strategies, first, read the task carefully. First, foremost, most importantly, do this because you must, or else you will make mistakes and you will lose points really for nothing. Next, write no more than 250 words. Now, again, you you don't need to go through and count all of the words that you're going to use. You don't have to say 201, 202, 203, but generally have an idea of how much you're writing. One strategy that I've used in the past is to count the words on one line, and count the lines that I've written, and simply multiply them. But this is only if you have the time to do it. You may not. If you don't have time, just make sure there are no unnecessary sentences and no unnecessary structures in your writing. And typically, you shouldn't have to worry about this too much. Next, always plan your writing. This will make sure that you, A, have enough information, B, don't repeat any information, which yours truly has done in the past, and C, it makes sure that you don't write too much or too little. Properly plan. Finally, structure your answer. Be sure to use a format that's something like an introduction, followed by 2 and 3 main points, and finally a conclusion. Now, likewise, don't waste your time making your writing too difficult. Yes, you could sit there and try and figure out how to use a complicated embedded third conditional structure, but why bother? There's no reason to, and it won't improve your score. So it's better to use more common, more logical structures and do them well. Next, try to think of interesting vocabulary. Don't be boring with your writing. And if you have trouble with this, then review our lesson on fighting boring words. It'll help you a lot. And finally, always proofread your spelling and your grammar, and this does include punctuation. Now, today we have reached the end of our video course to prepare you for the exam. And we've revised most of the important parts of the English language, and we've revised all of the parts that will be necessary for you to pass the exam successfully. Now, I really hope you've enjoyed the course, because I know I've enjoyed teaching all of you. And I sincerely hope that you get the best results possible on your exam. Good luck, and be sure to review everything. Just make sure that you can ace this exam. I don't want you just to pass the exam. I want the exam to be easy. So study, 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 and you will ace it in no time.